past unbroken chains. See how I've changed, yeah. Free from false fears appearing real. I'm not afraid, no, 'cause I'm free, I'm awake, and I'm alive, y'all. Yes, I'm awake, and I'm alive, and I'm free. Oh, one more time, I'm free from the past unbroken chains. See how I've changed. Free from false fears appearing real. I'm not afraid, no, I'm not afraid, 'cause I'm awake, I'm alive, and I'm free. You know why? I'm awake, I'm alive, and I'm free, because love has lifted me. Love has lifted me, and now I am free.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Leanne. Thank you very much. All right. Well, I'm going to be up here a while. You want to go have a seat?
I love to sit down and listen to you.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. This is actually Sacred Service Sunday. That's what we're going to call it, Sacred Service Sunday. And it's really part of our mission really here is to be of service. And one of the things I realize is that getting up and speaking about this as I'm looking out at this wonderful, amazing group of people, I'm kind of singing to the choir. Because I do see and know that the heart of service is really huge in this group, in this congregation. And it shows up, and it shows up in amazing and wonderful ways. And I want you to know how grateful I am. I'm so grateful for all of those who participated in the service activity yesterday, those who gave contributions of items, but also came and bought some things and gave donations. And so, but also those who were willing to just come and load things in and out. And it was really just a beautiful experience. And so I want you to know how grateful I am for all that you do and the energy and the consciousness of being of service and being of service to each other. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and what that means in terms of our own spirituality, in terms of our own growth, but also what it means really for our world today. Because we really are in a time where having a consciousness and an energy of service is so deeply needed. It's really obvious when we look at all the things that are going on in our world, if we really understood what that meant, and if we were really participating in it in a way, in a conscious way, and sharing that in more ways, we'll find that we will be the change, as Gandhi says, that we wish to see in the world. Came across a little story about a youngster who knocked on a door and he was inquiring to the man there if he would like to renew his newspaper subscription. And the man said, well, I told him no, and explaining that I seldom had time to read the paper, and lately I've just been taking it from the front porch directly to the trash. And the young man pondered this for a second and with enthusiasm said, well, you know, our motto is to be of service, so if you'd like, I would just deliver it directly to the trash for you. Well, that's one way of being of service, you know. I thought that was pretty cute, though. But I thought about this idea of serving, you know, and sometimes it feels like there's a little bit of a negative connotation on the idea of service and to be a servant, that somehow that means that you're less than or not really well, I looked up a definition, and it means to be a servant and to assist or a celebrant as a server at a mass, which is kind of a neat understanding. But to be of service also means to be of use, to have purpose, to be favorable. It means to be worthy of reliance or trust. It's someone who can be trusted. I thought that was a really good understanding about being of service. And it also, interestingly enough, means to hold an office and discharge a duty or function. Isn't that interesting definition? You know, we talk about in our world today, someone who is elected to an office, they're a public servant. I wonder how often they really understand that that's true, if you know what I mean. A lot of our work is really understanding that what we are really here for is to express more of the divine possibilities within us. And we're not capable of doing that in a vacuum. You really cannot experience and express the divine in a vacuum. You know, there's this idea and understanding that we have to go apart from the world. And I do believe that that's true. I think it's important for us to go apart from the world. But we go apart from the world not to isolate ourselves or not to be an aesthetic, but we go apart from the world in order to receive inspiration about how we can then come back into the world and bring what inspiration we have experienced in that time apart back into the world. You know, we teach meditation in Unity. We teach going into the silence, and it's the most significant thing we can do for ourselves and for the world and for our spiritual growth is to take some time in that silence. But if we only do that, if that's all we're doing is going and doing our own inner work and then not taking the gifts that we receive from that and sharing them outward, it's, as Jesus said, we're hiding a light under a bushel. We're hiding our light under a bushel. So we all are given gifts. We're all given ways of sharing our talents and our gifts and our inspirations. And it is absolutely one of the most important things we can do for our spiritual growth. You know, our fifth principle in Unity is that it's not enough, where does it go? It's not enough knowing these things is not enough. We must live them through our thoughts and words and actions. And so we have been given amazing insights and gifts and possibilities, and our work is really to share those with others to help them to experience that within themselves as well, right? I came across a wonderful quote from Martin Luther. He said, what is to serve God? What is it to serve God and to do God's will? Nothing else than to show mercy to our neighbor, for it is our neighbor who needs our service. God in heaven needs it not. So the divine doesn't need our service. We need our service of the divine to share that in the world, to show up in the way that we are being inspired and delivered and created to do. Belinda reminded me of a wonderful quote by Rabindranath Tagore this week. It says, "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. And I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy." I love that quote, and I do think that there's a real awareness for our own well-being that when we take what we are given in terms of our own spiritual growth and share that in some way to help lift someone else, we actually are lifting ourselves in the very process of doing that. In Matthew chapter 23, verse 8 to 12, it says, "But you are not called to be called rabbi, for you have one teacher. You are all brothers, and call no one your father on earth, for you have one Father who is in heaven. And neither be called teachers, for you have one teacher, which is the Christ within. The greatest among you shall be your servant. Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted." And so the greatest among you will be your servant. I do think that it is the very essence of leadership to be in a consciousness of being of service. You know, I think I learned best about service years ago when I was in the food industry, the restaurant business. How many of you ever waited tables? I thought there'd probably be a few here.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing how much I learned about the importance and significance of the energy and the attitude of service waiting tables. Interestingly enough, when I was waiting tables is when I first actually started coming into Unity and began to understand some of these principles and began to understand how my inner state, my inner feelings about myself, about what I was doing, and about those that I was waiting tables for had a huge impact. And I began learning this through some of the classes I took at the Unity Church, and I would go and apply what I was learning about that in my restaurant to really recognize that everyone that I was serving to was an expression of God, and that in reality, I wasn't serving people. I wasn't serving food. I was serving God. I was serving the divine in the very act of serving people and serving food. That's really what we're doing. When we have that attitude, interestingly enough, when I really got into that place and was able to really come from that energy, it's amazing how my tips went up. I kid you not. In fact, they wanted me to be one of the trainers for the rest of the waiters during that time. I was considering me going into restaurant management and I got a higher calling. Got called to go to Unity Ministerial Training. I'm glad I did. It was a great lesson for me. One of the most interesting experiences I had waiting tables, when I first began waiting tables, and I worked at a pretty nice restaurant. It was a very popular restaurant in Little Rock, Arkansas, and it was a hopping place. It was very busy and always had groups of people that came together. And I remember when I kind of was fairly new at waiting tables. And this is tray service. You know, you guys know what I'm talking about when I say tray service? Everything comes out on a tray. Everything comes on a tray. You don't take plates out. You put it on a tray and you carry it out on a tray. So there was a family that came in of about 10 people, and there were 2 young twins sitting in high chairs over on this end of the table. And so I'm, really hustling, trying to really get things together for them, and we always served water. That was one of the rules of this restaurant. We always served glasses of water to the new people. So I had a tray of 10 glasses of water, big tray, and I was actually pretty good at tray service, though. I mean, I was pretty good at holding up a tray, and I didn't have any problem balancing 10 glasses of water on a tray. I've been doing it for months already. So I'm going over to set the water down, and there's a way you have to do this, see. There's a way you have to do a tray of glasses of water so that you make sure that it all stays there. You follow what I'm saying? So you have to do it very gingerly, you might say. And so when I am going over to serve, and I was going to put a glass of water in front of the mother of these 2 twins, I was over behind them, and I reached over to give her a glass of water. She said, "Oh, let me help you." And picked up 2 glasses from my tray. And there were still 7 left. And those 7 glasses went all over those 2 twins. And all over the table. And I'm telling you, it was a ruckus that you would not believe. I mean, these 2 twins were screaming and yelling, and I felt so bad. I felt so bad because my intention really was to serve. I felt so bad. And the mother became livid. She was livid that I had dumped this water all over her babies. And I guess in a way I can understand her reaction. And I went back and I went and told the manager what was happening, and I told the manager what went on, and he kind of said, "Oh." Then I told him that she was helping me, and so he went in there and was able to kind of get things calmed down. And then the husband actually was there also, and he had seen what happened, and he was actually kind of able to get things calmed down a little bit. And then afterwards, I went and I said, I'm really very sorry about this. I'm really very sorry we had this problem. And she said, no, I realize now I'm sorry. I realize I was trying to help and I really caused the problem. And they gave me one of the best tips I ever got. So, it really was, at first, I have to say, I was not in that place of feeling, I was really kind of mad at first, to be honest. I was mad because what does she think she's doing? I mean, I was really, and then I kind of stopped and I went, oh, wait a minute. Who is this I'm serving? And when I was able to do that, I was able to shift my energy in such a way that the whole story changed. Now the kids were still wet, but they got cleaned up, and they were actually okay, and no one was really hurt, except my ego a little bit, of course, because I thought I was pretty proud of myself for how I could do that. But it was a good experience for me to recognize that when I'm in the right state of awareness, when I'm in the right state of consciousness, when I'm able to, or when I'm able to move back to that and understand who and what I am serving in my life, it's amazing how things kind of work out. It's amazing how things shift. It's amazing how things turn around. And I believe we all have that ability because we really are here to express more of that divine nature. Emily Cady says in Lessons in Truth, unless you use for the service of others what God has already given to you, you will find it a long, weary road to spiritual understanding. Let me say that again, because it's an important, significant awareness. Unless you use for the service of others what God has already given to you, you will find it a long, weary road to spiritual understanding. So it's not service is not kind of an isolated thing. It's a huge, important part of the package of our own spiritual growth and understanding. And by participating in that service, we actually open up the gates of our heart to really allow something higher to come through. And one of the things about it, of course, is, as Tagore says, service is joy. I remember a story that I'm pretty sure it was Harville Hendricks told at one of our conferences at Unity some years ago. And he told the story, and I remember reading it again another place. And he said that he had been doing suicide counseling. He's a psychologist and was doing counseling, and he was talking to one of his clients that was suicidal. And he's had some real concerns for this young man. And the young man said he just didn't have anything to live for, didn't have any friends, was just depressed, and just So he had him on the phone for a while, and Harville Hendricks said, is there somebody that you could help? Is there somebody that you could help? And he says, no, I don't know anybody. I don't have any friends. There's nothing I know how to do. I can't do anything for anybody else. He says, there's got to be something. There's got to be somebody that could use some help in some way. He says, well, there is this older lady that lives downstairs from me, and I noticed that the leaves were kind of piling up on her front door, and I've gone by there and wondered why she hadn't swept it off. And I said, I guess I could go down there and sweep off her front porch for her. And Harville said, okay, I'm going to stay on the phone. You're to go down there right now. You get your broom and you go down and you sweep off her front porch, and I'm going to stay on the phone, and I want you to come back to the phone. And so he goes down and he sweeps off the lady's front porch, and then he comes back, and Harville said, well, how do you feel? And he says, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good. And he was able to have that man shift his awareness and his energy just that little bit so that he knew that there was something more and something better and something higher for him. And he went on to say that this man wound up actually doing some fantastic service work throughout the world, and was doing a number of different things, and lived a very full life. So here's the thing. it's in one of the most significant things we can do when we find ourselves in a place of depression, interestingly enough, is stop thinking about ourselves. Because that's really at the heart of depression, if you think about it. Believe me, I know about this. I've gone through many years and many times of feeling depressed. And what I realize is that whenever I am depressed, it's because I'm thinking about me. I'm thinking about something I think I don't have, or I'm thinking about something I think I should have, or about something I should be doing, or I'm trying to get something. And this is just being honest with you, folks. When I'm in that place, that's exactly what's going on. Maybe you recognize this. But then when I realize that I have an opportunity to help others, when I have an opportunity to help others to feel better, to feel loved, to be able to give in some way through my life and what I do, it fades. The depression moves away, and I'm in a different space. So unless we use that energy, that consciousness we have to help serve, we're actually constricting our own ability to experience well-being. You realize that? We're actually blocking ourselves. There was a story I came across about a wealthy American traveler visiting a hospital in Southeast Asia. And he walked in just as a young missionary nurse was cleaning the sores of a sick, older man, and that she had found lying in the gutter. And the rich man looked in and saw what was going on and said to the nurse, "Man, I wouldn't do that for $1 million." And she looked at him and said, "Neither would I," and kept on with his task. I thought that was a really powerful awareness. We're not doing it for the reward. We're doing it because it is our nature to be a giving person, whether we know it or not or realize it or not. It's in our nature. It's our nature to share. It's in our nature to help. It's in our nature to do something for others. And when we're not doing that, we find ourselves diminished in some way. In the book Revelation, the Book of Unity by Sig Paulson and Dick Dickerson, they say there is an aspect within us that is constantly in service to the Most High. And we grow spiritually, and as we grow spiritually, we become more aware of it. So a big part of our spiritual growth is really waking up to that part of us that is constantly in service to the Most High. In Prayer of the Master Key, James Dillard Freeman is the wonderful poet laureate of Unity, and who's written just some amazing poems, and has 2 poems that are actually on the moon right now that were taken there by the astronauts. And he said, "Whoever serves love, whoever serves intelligence, whoever serves life, serves God." And so when we are being of service to others, we're actually not being just of service to other human beings or animals or whatever, or the world for that matter. We're actually being of service to the divine. And one of my favorite quotes is from Albert Schweitzer. Albert Schweitzer is probably, to me, the epitome of someone who was a man of service and gave of his life really to help those in Africa and other countries to really live a fuller life. He says, I don't know, he was given actually an address, and I believe this was addressed at a college graduation, and I don't recall which one it was, but I think it was Harvard. He said, "I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I do know, the only ones among you who will be really happy are those who will have sought and found how to serve." So seeking and finding how to serve is more than just in the doing. It's in the doing. The action is important. What we do is important. but it is the energy and the attitude that we come from that really makes it sacred service. When we are being of service to the divine, when we look into the hearts and lives of others and we say, and one of the things we do each Sunday here on Sunday mornings, we have a circle and we say, it is not I, but it is the Spirit of God within me that does the work. We're allowing that work to come through us, but it's also, it is not I, but it is the Spirit of God that I am serving. And interestingly enough, in the very act of doing that, because we are one in spirit, because we are one in truth, we're actually also serving ourselves. So, as I said, I see a lot of nodding heads, and I know that's, I'm kind of preaching to the choir today, but it just seems like a good day to celebrate this idea, this understanding of what it means to be of service. And ask you to listen within your heart. If there is some way that you could be of service, and you feel called to do that, we want that from you and of you and for you, because we know that that's one of the things that will help you to reach your full possibilities of your spiritual life. And so we're going to have a training afterwards. If that's something that interests you, come and find out how you might be of service here to your spiritual community, how you might be a part of sharing your light here or in other places for that matter. And that's our lesson for this week and probably for our lifetime, as usual. And so let's move into our meditation time. We'll have some music and then we'll meditate. So let's take a nice deep breath. Breathe into the heart space. And as we breathe into the heart space, allow your heart to be open, to being inspired, to being given divine awareness and ideas, being given a spirit of compassion and love. There's a saying that most people wish to serve God, but in an advisory capacity only. So just notice that part of you that wants to be in an advisory capacity. And just bless that part of you. And be open to allowing that part of you to be the servant. Just allowing the divine inspiration to work and flow through you, to guide and direct, to inspire and uplift. And just see yourself sharing yourself, your time, your talents, your treasure, your presence, and making an important and powerful difference, or making a small, subtle difference. Perhaps it's something as simple as giving someone your smile. Perhaps it's as simple as a pat on the back or an appreciation of someone being a divine light. Or perhaps it's helping someone to find that light when they're in the darkness. We're all called in some way to serve something higher. And so just put that part of you that needs to be in an advisory capacity aside for the time being, and trust and know that there is a higher understanding and wisdom available to you and flowing through you. And give thanks for the opportunities to let the light of Spirit shine through. Thank you, thank you, thank you, blessed Spirit. And so it is.